Tommy Jaggi of Fansided here with NFL expert Marcus Mosher on the No Huddle Show on Stacking the Box. Training camps are underway. I can't believe we're a week through training camp already, Marcus, and we have Hall of Fame game football already this week. We're going to table, though, the training camp discussion for now because we want to talk about the 5 sleeper teams who could really surprise some fans by making the playoffs this year.
Yeah, and we decided to kind of leave out some of the teams like the Broncos who snuck into the playoffs last year. These are teams that maybe nobody's talking about that we think could have a chance to not only make the playoffs, but maybe actually make some noise in their respective conferences.
Yeah, they could try to make some waves here, Marcus. And let's start right off with the first team that we have listed. We're going to give the reasons why this team could make the playoffs. And then we're also going to talk about what's going to hold them back from getting there if they don't make it. The first one is the Jacksonville Jaguars, a 4-13 team last year. Trevor Lawrence only played 10 games, but in those games, Marcus, they were 2-8. So what on earth are we doing listing them as a potential playoff team right now? Well, they've had a lot of changes, right? Trevor Lawrence is getting healthy. Liam Cohen's the new head coach. They got Travis Hunter on offense now to pair with Brian Thomas Jr. There's a lot of reasons to get excited about this team as a potential playoff team. And you look at the division that they're in, it was pretty wide open last year. If that happens again, they could be the ones coming out on top.
I think the biggest jump you get in the NFL is when you go from bad coaching to even average coaching. And I kind of thought Doug Peterson the last couple of years, I was shocked that he was able to come back for the 2024 season. But when you have just average coaching, it can really make the difference. And I really like Liam Cohen. I love what he did with Tampa Bay last year as the offensive coordinator. I like what he did at Kentucky. He was with the Rams as well. And I just think he's going to get this offense to play at a more acceptable level. And if they're playing at a decent level and the defense continues to make strides in that division, Tommy, where it's, the Colts who have a up and down quarterback situation. You've got the Titans who have a rookie quarterback. And then there's the Texans who probably have the worst offensive line in the league. I don't think it's all that hard to squint and see the Jaguars winning the division this year.
Yeah, not at all. I think that you look at the situation in Indianapolis because I think that that's going to be their biggest rival for at least second in the division. Like Titans just aren't going to get there this year. I'm not a Daniel Jones fan. I think that even if Anthony Richardson gets it, he's going to be a very high variance quarterback. And it looks like it's going to be Daniel Jones's job at some point. So knowing that and knowing that the Jaguars are already sitting in pole position to be at least the number 2 team in the AFC South, how hard, Marcus, would it be for them to vault themselves ahead of number 1? Because you look at the Texans team, they are well coached with DeMeco Ryans. They do have a quarterback in CJ Stroud. They've got a wide receiver room. They've got a very good pass rushers. Like, what do they have to do to be better than the Texans?
I think it's all in the offense, right? Because I actually think this defense has got a lot of talent between Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker, one of the better edge duos in the league. The cornerback situation should be much improved this year with Tyson Campbell healthy. They brought in Jordan Lewis to be their slot corner. I think the defense is going to be fine. It's just, can Liam Cohen get this offense to play at a high level? And honestly, they should. They had Brian Thomas Jr., who was phenomenal during his rookie year. They spent all this draft capital on Travis Hunter, who's going to play offense and defense, helping out that side more. As long as he can get Trevor Lawrence to play like the quarterback we saw more during like the 2022 and some of the 2023 season, they should have no problem at all being in that 9 to 10 win range. And like we saw from the Texans the last couple of years, they've won the division, but it's not like they've won it going away. Like this has been a very tight division. I think this is going to come down to the last couple of weeks of the year, and I expect Jacksonville to be a part of that conversation.
Marcus, we're talking about a team, though, last year, again, that had 4 wins, was 2-8 under Trevor Lawrence when he played. Now he played banged up, played through some injuries, but that's not good. They scored 18.8 points per game. Like, how much improvement can you make offensively in one season? Is Liam Cohen and Travis Hunter enough to vault them up by 6-8 points per game?
I mean, I think so. That offense last year was just so stagnant. It was very static. They did not have a lot of motion. There wasn't a lot of pre-snap stuff. And now with Liam Cohen, you're going to see more condensed formations. You're going to see guys moving all around the field. You're going to see way more play action, and that's one of the things that Doug Peterson really got away from the last couple of years. I just think this is going to be an offense that looks like a 21st century offense, and that just wasn't the case last year. It
Mhm.
felt very much like Doug Peterson just got stale, and that happens in the NFL. We've seen great coaches, Super Bowl winning coaches like Doug Peterson, where they just get stale. And I think now that you have a younger coaching staff, a younger front office, just by some of the clips that we're seeing in training camp, there seems like there's this newer found energy with Jacksonville. And sometimes, Tommy, that's all it takes is just having a change in scenery for these guys, a change at the top to get everybody excited.
Yeah, and I'm a believer in Liam Cohen too. But Marcus, for the Jaguars, we have to assume when you look at the AFC outlook in general, it is division title or bust, right? Like you're not going to
Yeah.
get a wild card a spot probably if you're this team, just knowing how crowded it is everywhere.
It's going to be really hard. I think you have to get to double digit wins. And if you're at double digit wins, you're probably going to win the division or be close. Yeah, I think it's their best path to making the playoffs is winning the division, hosting a home playoff game. And again, I think they have the talent to do it. They've got the right players at the right positions, right? They've got the receiver, they've got the pass rusher, they've got the corner in Tyson Campbell, who's an outstanding player. Maybe Travis Hunter will be another Pro Bowl caliber corner. But my concern here, Tom, is the offensive line. I don't worry about the tackles too much. I thought what we saw from Walker Little was actually pretty good last year. My concern is the interior of their offensive line with Robert Hainsey at center, Ezra Cleveland at left guard, who has kind of bounced around the league. I just have some major concerns about an offense that is going to need to be high powered, and they're just struggling in the middle, which could really limit the run game. That's the
Mhm.
spot that could eventually hold them back. So keep an eye on that left guard, center, right guard combo because I think that's going to tell the story of this team.
Yeah, that could be concerning. And Marcus, I want to bring it back to Trevor Lawrence one more time here. A guy got paid a ton of money last offseason. But is this still like a do or die season for Lawrence? Like at some point, you got to show up and prove that you are that guy. Now the Jags thought that he was obviously paying him that much money. It's a hard contract to get out of. But what do they do after this year if things go as poorly as they just did?
Nothing. I mean, it's the first year of a new offense. He's had a lot of different, voices in his ear between Urban Meyer during his rookie year, the Doug Peterson offense the last couple of years. Jacksonville is going to be patient here because Trevor Lawrence is incredibly talented. They're paying him a lot of money. They're not suddenly going to cut bait and go somewhere else. So I think what they want to see is just some improvement and probably more than anything, just show that you can be durable and stay on the field. That's been honestly the biggest knock for
Yeah.
Lawrence is he's had a hard time fighting off these injuries. So if you can stay on the field, stay upright, show progress in this offense, he's going to be fine. But I'd be shocked to see Jacksonville move on after this year, regardless of how the season goes.
All right, Marcus, let's move on from the Jags and let's talk about a team from the NFC North. And you talk about a really crowded division, maybe the most crowded in football. And now it's getting a huge shakeup because Ben Johnson, obviously going from the Detroit Lions, now as the head coach of the Chicago Bears. Was he the most coveted head coach to come out in years in the NFL?
Probably just because these teams are all searching for that young offensive mind that can be the next Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan. So yeah, he probably was.
So let's talk about the Bears for a little bit here. So that's the big change. Ben Johnson's here now, but the Bears also have a really young offense. Obviously, you're trying to build around Caleb Williams, who was admittedly up and down as a rookie, showed the flashes, showed off the arm talent, what didn't pull it all together there. But what do you think is the biggest factor in their favor this year? If it's saying that it's not Ben Johnson, anything besides Ben Johnson, because that
Yeah,
should obviously elevate the offense.
it's the offensive line, right? They went out and made
Mhm.
significant investments in the offensive line. They traded for Joe Thuney, who was the NFL's best guard before he moved to left tackle. Now he gets to be a left guard again. They went out and signed Drew Dahlman in free agency from Atlanta, and the center position for the Bears over the last decade and a half has been a major problem. You go back to the last great center they had, Nolan Kurtz.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been a major problem for them, right? Now they finally have a center that fits their scheme. They go out and get Jonah Jackson. I just think the offensive line is in a much better spot than it was at this time last year when we were all really excited about the Bears. Now they actually have some depth with Ozzie Trapillo, who they drafted in the second round from Boston College. So we'll see. It usually takes these offensive lines a little bit to gel, but on paper, the talent alone is significantly better than what we saw 12 months ago. And that's honestly the biggest reason why I'm optimistic here.
Yeah, I think though we're looking at a division that is so loaded. And I mean, for sure, you're getting a couple of playoff teams out of the NFC North, right? I think you're looking at the line. Like, how big of a step down does it hurt the Lions? And you look at it, it is a two-person swing here. Not only they lose Ben Johnson, they lost Aaron Glenn, but then Ben Johnson goes to a division rival. And so it's not going to make the difference though from like a 14-win team and
No.
boosting a 5-win team. Like, it's got to meet somewhere in the middle there. But where do you see them finishing in this division? Because in all reality, Marcus, I think it's too bold to say the Bears can win the NFC North this year. I think they're going to have to get a wild card spot, right?
I would agree. And I think the Packers are probably going to be the best team in the division this year. I just think they're the
Mhm.
most well-rounded. And then you get Minnesota, who, they won 13 games
Yeah.
last year. Now they've got a new quarterback situation, but they've made significant improvements on their defense, which is already outstanding. They boosted their offensive lineup with the Donovan Jackson selection. They signed Ryan Kelly. They signed Will Fries. So this is, to me, the best division in the NFL, top to bottom. But could the Bears, get to 9, 10 wins and potentially be a wild card team? Absolutely. They've got the talent to do that. And usually what we see, Tommy, is these quarterbacks take a big step from year one to year two. I think getting Ben Johnson compared to what we had last year with Matt Eberflus and all Shane Waldron, I do think this is going to be a major improvement on that side of the ball. I think the only question is, how long does it take this offense to gel? Because not only do you have a new
Mm.
play caller, but you've got a lot of new pieces, including Colston Loveland, Luther Burden, 3 new interior offensive linemen. It could be a little bit before they're ready to go. And unfortunately, in the NFC, you don't have very many games that you can mess around and lose early in the year.
Yeah, so much young talent, a young offensive-minded coach, but their Achilles heel is their own division. Marcus, if the Bears were in, let's say, the NFC South right
Yeah,
now,
they'd be the favorite.
how much better would their odds of making the playoffs be?
Yeah, they'd probably be the favorites right now. I think
Yeah.
Tampa Bay has been always a little bit overrated because they feasted on backup quarterbacks and in a bad division. I think Tampa Bay last year went 6-6 against teams that had their starting quarterbacks, which is not great, right?
Mhm.
So I agree. I think the division is their Achilles heel. I also would say the defense really fell apart last year once Matt Eberflus was fired, and that shouldn't be a surprise. You fire a defensive-minded head coach, suddenly the defense gets worse. But what does the defensive line look like? Can they get Montez Sweat to put up big numbers? Who's going to be the other pass rusher? I wouldn't be surprised if Chicago just gets into a lot of shootouts. We'll see. I'm very bullish on this team though going into the year.
Yeah, I am too. I really like where the Bears are sitting right now, even with their schedule and division considered and all. Let's talk about the New England Patriots, Marcus, as a sleeper team to make the playoffs for the 2025 season. Again, they were kind of like the Jaguars last year, just not in a very good state, 4-13 record. You saw the flashes from Drake May, and I think that's what gives the Patriots fans hope more than anything else, is if May can take that next step, like we've seen so often from talented quarterbacks going from year one to year two. He could do that. The problem is you also have the Buffalo Bills in this division. And so by default, are we looking at a team that needs to make it as a wild card team? And where other areas do you see improvement on the Patriots going into this year?
I don't know if they need to be a wild card team this year. It is year one of Mike Vrabel. You're only going into year two of Drake May. Like, I think what we need to see from New England is just improvement. Like, if they get to, I think their win total right now, most sports books is 8.5 wins. If they get to that range, honestly, that's probably a big step up considering how bad they were last year. I think, was this a 3 or 4 win team last year? If you can, double your win total, that's fantastic. I think for me, the reason why I like this team is because of their defense and what they did in free agency and in the draft. Their front three of Keon White, Christian Barmore, and Milton Williams, who they signed in free agency, that's one of the best interior defensive lines in the entire NFL. That is a big,
Yeah.
powerful, athletic group. They go out and sign Harold Landry to give them some more help on the edge. They sign Robert Spillane, who was awesome for the Raiders. And you pair that with the secondary they already had. Like, Tommy, this should be one of the top 5 or 6 defenses in the league with Mike Vrabel coaching it. And for that reason alone, they're going to be in a lot of these games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Vrabel is one of the best defensive mind coaches in the NFL. The Patriots had defensive talent already. The defense hasn't been their issue, though, Marcus.
Nope.
17 points per game last year, and that came with Drake May playing quarterback. How big of a step forward does the offense need to take, assuming the defense does their job, that you still have to put up offensive production? You can't be that team anymore that just rides the coattails of your defense and expects to find playoff success.
Well, let me ask you this. How much better do you feel about their wide receiver core now that they signed Stephon Diggs? I know Stephon's older now, but they have Stephon Diggs. They have Pop
Kyle
Douglas
Williams.
in the slot. They drafted Kyle Williams. They have Kayshon Boutte, who actually played really well in the second half of the year. Like, this is not a great receiving core, but it feels better. And I think that's all that New England was hoping for.
It should be improved. Having said that, when you compare it to receiving cores around the league, it's like, all right, is an aged out Stephon Diggs as good as what other teams have as their top option? Can Kyle Williams be a wide receiver too? Well, both you and I liked Kyle Williams a lot coming out. I'm not a believer in anything else they have going on for. I really am not. I wasn't impressed with Jalen Polk or anything as far as their depth receivers go. Now, obviously, those guys can improve, but we'll see. I think that Drake May is uber talented. He needs to get more help from his receivers. And if they can do that, they should be able to vault themselves. I think that it's reasonable, Marcus, to think that they can go from a team that scores 17 points a game up to maybe 22, 23 points a game. And is that enough if you pair it with a good defense?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't even know if they're going to need to score that many points because I think they've done enough where they can be close to average on offense. I think the combination of Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson's good. Like, I think those two running backs worked well together. Maybe you use Henderson as a receiver. And I think even smaller signings, like going out and getting Mac Hollins. Mac Hollins is not going to make this team a playoff team, right? But I do think he just improves the depth. And now you're putting a guy on the field that has been in a lot of big games where, and you look at the receiving core last year and some of the guys they were rolling out there. And I just feel like the middle of this roster is so much better. But the issue is, Tommy, it's the offensive line. You look at this offensive line right now. It's Will Campbell, the 4th overall pick, playing left tackle. It's Cole Strange, who's been a disaster. They signed Garrett Bradbury, who was pretty bad last year for Minnesota. They signed Morgan Moses, who was banged up for the Jets last year. Like, this could be arguably the worst offensive line in the league. And when you have a young quarterback, that's usually not a great sign. That's the one thing that's holding me back from calling the Patriots a playoff team this year.
Yeah, I think you can still bet on it that they're going to be a team that tries to win based on their defense, try to play ball control offense in those low scoring affairs. We talked about the Bills obviously being the front runner to roll away with this division. What is like the maximum win total you can see them get? Can they be a 10-win team and give themselves at least a coin flips chance to get in as a wild card spot?
Their schedule's really soft, and I do think that's going to help. And I will say, I think Mike Vrabel is one of the better coaches at maximizing the talent. Like, you look at some of those Titans teams. It wasn't that long ago the Titans were like a 2 seed in the AFC. Like, go back and look. Like, Vrabel does a really good job of getting these guys to play over their heads. And I think that's why he went out and signed guys like Robert Spillane and Carlton Davis and Kendrick Ellis, just to give them a higher floor. Could they potentially get to 9 to 10 wins? It wouldn't shock me. In some ways, they remind me of like your Pittsburgh Steelers in like 2022, 2023, where you feel like they're not really a double-digit win team, but you look on the stat sheet and they are. That's kind of how I feel about the Patriots going into the year.
And maybe Vrabel can be that version of their Mike Tomlin who
Yep.
raises the floor for them, because we've seen him do that in Tennessee. All right, Marcus, let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons now, a team that fell just below 500 at 8-9 last year. They've got talent to work with, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. They've got playmakers. Things did not go swimmingly for Kirk Cousins down the stretch after he suffered the shoulder injury. They turned to Penix. So much hinges on Michael Penix Jr. Obviously, this season, he showed flashes. He showed off that arm talent late in the year when he got the opportunity. Do you think that this team can take the next step forward? And we already talked about the NFC South a little bit, how it's wide open and really outside of Tampa Bay. Like, this could be their year to win the division. And so I feel pretty good about the Falcons as that sleeper team going into the season.
Yeah, I remember last year, I think going into week 17, the Falcons still had a chance to win the NFC South. And that was with a bunch of
Yeah.
terrible things happening to them all year. But the reason why I'm optimistic about this team is they've got an awesome offensive line. And this comes down to a lot of these teams. Like, their offensive line is one of the best in the NFL. They can really run the ball well. So it just gives them an incredibly high floor. They've got a number one receiver in Drake London. They've got a really good outside target in Darnell Mooney who pairs well. Like, this is an offense that we saw with Michael Penix put up a lot of points. And I think they're going to be able to control the line of scrimmage. They're going to be able to score points. I think the only question is, will their defense be able to stop anybody?
That's the question. I think that's why they spent so many resources to get a pair of edge rushers early in the NFL draft, at least if they can try to get pressure. Maybe that can alleviate some of the pain on the defensive side of the ball. But I agree. I like where they're sitting right now. I think that the division is very much in play for the Falcons. Anything else you want to add with them?
Yeah, I think Michael Penix is the right type of quarterback for this Falcons team, right? Like, you need somebody who's going to stand in the pocket. He needs to be protected because despite being a great athlete, he's really a pocket passer. But where he's the best is if he's in the pocket, he can throw the ball down the field. He's accurate. And behind this offensive line, like, I expect this to be an offense that utilizes a ton of play action. And we see lots of 20, 25-yard dig routes. I'm excited about Michael Penix. We've seen this trend, Tommy, over the last couple of years of these quarterbacks that come into college or that come into the NFL from college that have a bunch of experience, whether that's, Bo Nix from last year or Jaden Daniels. If you want to even go back to someone like Jalen Hurts, who played 4 years, Michael Penix is very experienced going into year two. I have some faith that this offense is going to be very high scoring. And it's not like they're totally devoid of talent on defense. They do have maybe, one of the top 5 safeties in the league in Jesse Bates. They have an outstanding cornerback in AJ Terrell. And then you mentioned it. They spent 2 first-round picks on Jalen Walker and James Pierce. If the defense can even just be competent, I wouldn't be surprised if they get to 9 or 10 wins this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on, and we'll talk about the last team on our list. And it really even shouldn't be that big of a surprise, Marcus, but they missed the playoffs. And so we're counting them as that sleeper team that can get in this year and really make some noise. Potentially, that's the Cincinnati Bengals. They went 9-8 last year. Offensive firepower, top notch, absolutely amazing with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, the most lethal quarterback wide receiver combination in the entire NFL. Joe Burrow, one of the most accurate quarterbacks of this generation. And he had a all-pro level season.
Yep.
He had an MVP level season last year. The problem was the defense was so pitiful that the Bengals never really stood a chance. And you could see that even if they got into the playoffs, they just can't stop a nosebleed. They've had issues this offseason already with Trey Hendrickson, trying to get him signed, finally resolve things with first-round rookie Shamar Stewart, who couldn't afford to miss any reps during the summer because he's so raw. Do you think the defense is going to be good enough to give the Bengals a shot in the playoffs this year?
It's hard to say. I do like bringing in Al Golden to run the defense. I think Lou Amoreno's defense got a little bit stale. I think they have more depth on defense than what most people realize. I think the issue for Cincinnati is they just don't have very many blue chippers, right? It's Trey Hendrickson and then a bunch of guys that probably most people haven't heard of. And that's why this Trey Hendrickson contract thing feels so big, right? You remove your all-pro pass rusher and you look at the depth chart, the roster, and it doesn't feel great. But I do like some of the moves they made. Like, for instance, they drafted Demetrius Knight in the second round. I think it was a little high, but that's an NFL-ready linebacker who can come in and help the run. They signed TJ Slayton from the Packers, one of the better run-stopping nose tackles in the league. Dax Hill coming back from injury. Again, they don't need to be the number 3 ranked unit in the league for this defense, for this team to make the postseason. I think if they're like 20th, Tommy, they're getting into the playoffs. Like, you can bet on it. I think the reason I'm optimistic about this team, I mean, yes, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, that's easy, right? But it feels like they have a bunch of young guys in this team that are starting to fill roles. Like, I think Chase Brown going into year 3. I really like him. I think he's a good player. They brought back Mike Gesicki. Even some of the young receivers like Jermaine Burton, who gave them nothing last year. He's been having a really strong training camp, and everybody's talked about how much he's matured. Andre Yoshavash, who's their number 3 receiver, he's having a strong camp. And the number one reason is the offensive line. I think you got Amarius Mims in year 2. I thought he took strides in the second half of the year. You've got Orlando Brown. So at least you have 2 tackles that you feel pretty good about. But it's all going to come down to that defense.
100%. The defense can't be rock bottom like it was last year. I think if it's anything but that, they probably do get in, even though the AFC is really crowded. The AFC North is particularly crowded as well. The Ravens are obviously the front runner to win that division with Lamar Jackson, everything they've got going on over there. But we've seen how these divisional games can go, and all it takes is to get the upper hand on the divisional record, and that might be enough to vault themselves in without needing a wild card spot. So I think that the division is very open for the Bengals to compete there, though they have to get a more respectable performance out of their defense. If they don't, they're going to find themselves in the same situation again.
Well, one quick thing before we go. This is the healthiest that Joe Burrow has been going into a training camp, and I'm knocking on my wood desk here. But I mean, he's had the hand issue. He's had torn ACLs. He's had the Achilles injury. He's had a shoulder stuff. I mean, just a lot of stuff going on for Burrow, but he's fully healthy. It's hard to imagine Burrow playing better than he did last year. But if the receivers like Burton and Yoshavash are better, you've got a healthy T. Higgins as well. Maybe this offense can just go to a nuclear level that we haven't even seen yet, and the defense just doesn't really matter that much at that point.
Yeah. I think you might be looking at a team that needs to win like Miami Dolphins style, early Mike McDaniel, where it's like you are putting up 32, 34 points a game and making your offense carry the load because they're quite frankly going to have to, I think, this year.
We also saw real quick. We saw Peyton Manning do this with the Colts, right? Like in the early 2000s, he was on another level where, the defense had holes, but it doesn't really matter when you're scoring 35 points a game. The opposing offense is just going to make mistakes, and you're going to capitalize. But that's it. Joe Burrow's the reason why we're
maybe that's the best comparison for this Bengals team. Like if they can be 85, 90% of that Peyton Manning Colts, where it's like everything is offensive firepower and passing game based. And your defense, the Colts defense, they got good pass rush out of their edge players and not a whole lot else. And so maybe the same is for the Bengals. Maybe Hendrickson, Shamar Stewart can be some variation of that Dwight Freeney, Robert Mathis. If you can get that a little bit even, you're sitting pretty for the Bengals. So
and we'll see. I mean, they're not going to be on that level, right? Because that's just one of the best teams that we've seen in a historic offense. But I think that's the model here. Hey, let's score 35 points. We just need our defense to get us 1 stop a quarter, 1 turnover a game, and that's going to be the difference in us winning these shootouts.
All right. Which teams do you think have the best shot to make the playoffs off of these 5 sleeper teams that Marcus and I mentioned? Drop it down in the comments section below. We go live on the Stack in the Box No Huddle Show every single Monday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm Tommy. That's Marcus. And thanks again for watching Stack in the Box.